Hey, my puppies! This is Melody Fletcher with Deliberate Receiving, where the law of attraction finally makes some freaking sense. And today's burning question comes from Awesome Waza, who wants to know. My question is about the nature and possible positive functions of despair. Is despair something given to us by Mother Nature and thus useful in some ways? If yes, which ways? Here's some background to my question. I'm a biologist, and I often see human feelings as functions for maintaining life. For example, pain is an alarm to make us aware of physical injury. From a biological perspective, almost everything is useful. Fear is an alarm for danger, and maybe depression itself, which I see as the most unbearable suffering of the soul, might actually achieve a survival function as a drive to allow us to finally switch away from some strong but deadly attachments or habits or way of life, because depression drives people to radical changes. So my question is, what is the nature of despair? Well, Awesome Waza, here is, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, here's the thing. All negative emotions are useful. So you put your finger right on it. There is a purpose for everything, and that purpose can be seen in a positive way. It is helpful. So in my book, Deliberate Receiving, Finally the Universe Makes Some Freaking Sense, shameless plug, I know, but I'm going to get it in there. I do go through the entire emotional spectrum, and I actually give you a definition for all the emotions, but I'm actually going to go a little bit further on the nature of despair than I did in the book, because there's only so much that you can do in a book. So thank you so much for asking this question and allowing me to go a little bit deeper into this. Now, despair is essentially utter hopelessness, and it's right there in the depression group, which is the lowest group. And depression, at its core, does serve the purpose that you mentioned. It is so painful for us to be in that state that it is kind of like what I call the cattle prod method of growth. When something becomes so painful, it's like being hit with a cattle prod that you finally change direction. Now, depression, if I'm going to define depression versus despair, they're very, very close to each other. But for me, depression is more of a passive state. It's like you're laying there in the fetal position and letting life just beat up on you and you've given up all hope. Whereas despair is a little bit more active. And this is actually slightly dangerous territory. And I don't mean dangerous in a bad way, but it's the best word that I can find for that at the moment. So you kind of want to watch that, because in despair we become more active, but become active out of a sense of absolute desperation. And this is where a lot of suicides happen, because we will do anything. We're finally willing to stand up out of that fetal position, and we're willing to do just anything at all to lessen the pain. We just want out. Now, if you're going to look at the positive aspect of that, I want to point out that despair is slightly higher up on the scale, on the emotional scale, than depression, which means that at that point you are willing to do something. But you don't need to do something drastic in terms of ending your life or taking a lot of drugs. This is also where a lot of drug addiction happens, self-medication happens, because you're just wanting to do something. Yeah? But the positive of this is that you are starting to move in the right direction on the spectrum. You are starting to move slightly towards empowerment, because despair is slightly more empowering than full-on depression, where you feel so powerless that you can't even do anything about it. So the hope in that statement is that if you keep moving up the spectrum, and my book lays out an entire plan for how to do that, if you keep moving up the spectrum, you can get past the despair, and then you'll actually move into anger at some point, which will pull you out of the powerlessness. So there is hope. There is sort of a light on the horizon, light at the end of the tunnel, where if you keep moving and recognize that despair is actually feeling a little bit more powerful than where you came from, full-on depression, that you're moving in the right direction, and that if you just keep moving, it will get better. So I hope that I have answered your question. If you think that this content is valuable, please do share it with people who think that it might be beneficial as well. And if you'd like to join the discussion, please leave a comment below. I love to read every single comment. Or come over to deliberatereceiving.com and join the Happy Shiny Puppy Army, which is a wonderful community of very supportive people, and that's also where all the best stuff happens. So thank you very much. This has been this week's Q&A. Please buy the book, Deliberate Receiving. I know, shameless plug. Told you, I'm going to just get it in there. And see you next time. Bye.